Hey everybody, I wanted to go over what I went over in class today for those of us that weren't here or were otherwise occupied. And so the thing we went over today were, my son wants to be a part of this. We went over three words: observe, infer, and predict. Those three words are very important, and it's important to know the difference between them and to understand what they all mean. So um, as I wrote them down in class, an observation is something that I know 100% to be true, right? I can make lots of observations. This is my son Isaac. I can observe all kinds of things about him. He has very short hair on the top of his head. He's got green pants on. He's got a white shirt. But the thing that stands out to me is this little bib, right? He's wearing a little bib. So I can observe that, and I know that's true 100%. But the question is, why is he wearing that bib? Is he wearing this bib because I'm about to feed him? Is he wearing this bib because it's a fashion statement? It's like a handkerchief on a cowboy? Why is he wearing this bib? And so I can make assumptions based on my observations. I can make some assumptions and say, he's wearing this bib because I'm about to feed him. Yeah, even he says, that's not the right answer. But it's the first answer that a lot of people would make because they would see a bib and say food. And so you make an observation, and then from that observation, you draw an assumption. This kid's about to eat. And that's my prediction. What's going to happen in the future? He's going to eat in a minute. Now, those are the basics of observe, infer, and predict. The problem is, this bib isn't for food, and I already gave him lunch, so he's not going to eat. That observation was correct. He's wearing a little bib, but the inference was wrong, and the prediction was wrong because it's a different kind of bib. Someone with a different experience might point out that this is probably for drool, and that if he's wearing a bib for drooling and he's this fussy, he's probably teething. And that is the correct answer. He's cutting teeth, and so he's drooling a lot. So I give him these bibs to make sure that he doesn't get his clothes soaking wet. And all we have to do is change his bib from time to time, not his onesie. That's the main notion between observe, infer, and predict, is that a lot of the time, or at least some of the time, we make assumptions that are wrong. And so the purpose of the exercise that we did today, I call it an OIP, or an observe, infer, and predict, is to break down those assumptions and find out why I'm making the assumptions I'm making. So I showed this picture in class, and I said, can you please make some observations about this picture? You'll notice that there's a baby in the middle, right? There's a kid in the middle. I don't even know that using the word baby is correct because he's got long hair. So how old is this kid? Could he be a small size of an older child or a larger sized younger child? It's impossible to know this child's age, but I can use indicators like the length of his legs compared to the arms of the adults around him, or the length of his hair. But he's also not wearing shoes, he's wearing socks, so maybe he can't walk yet. So there's all these things that I have to look at, these observations, to try to figure out how old this kid is. And then the other observation is he's in the middle of a barbed wire fence. So why is he in the middle of a barbed wire fence? And I can make observations. I can look around and say things like, the person on this side of the fence, on our side of the fence, is wearing, it looks like a suit jacket based on the cuffs. These mountains are enormous, majestic mountain ranges. I don't think those are in the US. This fence is made out of barbed wire and very narrow wooden stakes. It looks like it's been put together recently. It's not the kind of fence that stays up for a long time. And these look like tents in the background over here. This is a refugee camp. These people have good clothes and are well maintained. They're wearing They have nice like haircuts, and they're wearing nice clothing, and there's some semblance of like nail polish here and maybe some makeup. So these people are not the destitutely poor. These are people who have been driven away from their lives into a refugee camp. I use those observations to make those predictions, or I'm sorry, those assumptions. Which doesn't necessarily mean that I'm right about any of the things I just said. The only things that I'm right about is that that's a big mountain. Those are tents. Those are people. They are wearing clothes. I can make statements about the state of their clothing, but anything that I assume based on that, if I assume the suit belongs to a man, that's an assumption that could be wrong. If I assume that they are in a refugee camp, that could be wrong. My big question here is, which way is that baby going? Is that baby going into the camp or out of the camp? And I don't know the answer to that question. And you can't tell me the right answer to that question because we don't know the right answer. It could be going into the camp. It could be coming out of the camp. It could be just hanging out in the middle. Maybe they're just holding it in between the barbed wire. That doesn't seem likely, but it is a possibility. So when we look at information, we have to try to figure out why. How do we know what we know? There was just an article published today it said in Go Local Providence that said that Providence has the highest rate of infection for COVID-19 in the world. When we look at it per 100,000 cases, Rhode Island has the highest rate of infection. That's an observation. It's based on data. We look at data, we calculate, and we figure it out. Rhode Island has the highest rate of infection. When I ask why, any answer you give me is an assumption. Is it because people aren't wearing their masks? Maybe. Is it because people are still gathering in groups? Maybe. Is it because we're totally wrong about everything we know about COVID and it's being transmitted through a water supply or something? Maybe. It's not true. I know that's not true. I realize I'm spreading wild conspiracy theories right now. That's definitely not true, right? The things we know we're pretty solid on. But we only know it as much as we're certain about it. There's a lot of discourse over the recent election and whether or not there was fraud. 52 court cases, and none of them have produced any evidence of voter fraud at all in 52 court cases. But still, millions of people think that our election was fraudulent and stolen and not legal. Where are they getting the information from? There's so many places in our world today where we need to focus more on evidence and figure out why we think we know what we think we know. And it's not uncommon for me to hear things like, I just feel like this is true, or I know it in my heart that this is true. Well, your feelings and your heart are often wrong. So we want to know, where are we getting our evidence from? What observations have been made, and what assumptions am I drawing from that? Science aims to make good predictions, right? We know that we have the highest rate of infection for COVID. We can make reasonable assumptions that it's because of a lack of people following the rules. It's because of people gathering in large groups. It's because of people not wearing face masks. And we can look for evidence to back that up. We can test, and we can observe. We can go and make check-ins at restaurants and people and see what kind of parties are happening. But by and large, we have to make assumptions about why the rates are so high. And then we can make predictions like, when are we going to get back into the school building? What kinds of restrictions is the governor going to pass down because of our rates? All of those predictions, we can make predictions, and some of them are going to be good and some of them are going to be bad. But they're all uncertain. They're all based in a certain level of uncertainty. And that uncertainty is because of my observations, inferences, and predictions. I make observations that are 100% true. That's a kid in the fence. Rhode Island has the highest rate of infection. People think that there is that the election was cheated, right? The assumptions I make are those inferences. I base those on my observations. I assume that people think the election was stolen because heads of state keep saying it. Maybe they have other reasons for believing it. I assume that people aren't wearing masks enough, and that's why we're raising the rate of COVID. Do I know it for certain? I don't, but I'm making that assumption. And I'm predicting things. This child in the picture is being passed into the camp because of all the assumptions I made up to that point. I predict that this kid is going to break teeth soon. I predict that the governor is going to shut down more of the state. And I predict that there will be more lawsuits and people will continue to argue about our election. All of those predictions could be wrong because they're based on inferences or assumptions that could be wrong. But what science aims to do is make the best predictions. And that means I want to take the best observations I can and use that to make the best assumptions I can, and then use those assumptions to make the best predictions I can. And so that's what we did in class today, right? This guy helped me out. I think that's all I have to say. Your assignment for today is that if you haven't done it yet, I want you to go and watch this video on the classroom titled Lies About Renewable Energy. Oh, God, he's got such a good grip. If you haven't watched this video yet, please go to the classroom and watch it. It is right here, The Biggest Lie About Renewable Energy. Please, it's an article about why we still use fossil fuels and how renewable energy, we have kind of been lied to about it. And it's the reason the U.S. is falling behind in renewable energy by so much. And that's everything, all right? Have a good day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.